Right, hi everybody, Tom here from pHNutrition. This week I'm sat here with Loz. We're going to answer just a very kind of quick couple of questions, so just kind of a really informal coffee chat. Hopefully you shouldn't take up too much of your day if you're watching this video. On the newsletter, there'll be obviously my email address, and I'll drop it in at the end as well. So if you've got any other questions that you want answered, please feel free to drop us an email. This is going to be a start of a kind of new series that I'm going to do, whether it's on my own or with a coach or with a guest, just to kind of, share some ideas, share some best practices, etc. So we're going to talk about two areas today. We're going to talk about like a pyramid of importance. So in terms of maybe like realigning your nutrition, or maybe kind of thinking about kind of resetting your diet, like what are the key things to focus on. And then we're going to have a bit of a chat about female athletes and functional fitness. So,
sounds good to me.
Yeah, sounds good. So in terms of kind of what we say by pyramid of importance is that all too often we find that people, invert the pyramid. They kind of start at what we would call the top, worrying about often kind of the very small things. And you might see this as well as a coach, as I'm sure, that people come in and their first questions are often like, right, do I need a protein shake after I'm training? What supplements should I be taking? What about, should I be having strawberries rather than raspberries, or all these kind of different things? We need to build a pyramid. So, it's the same even, when it comes to fitness and exercise. Like, you need to know how to move well before you can, move with intensity or put more weight on the bar, focusing on principles as opposed to methods, so to speak. From a coach's experience, what do you find, like, whether it's training or nutrition, like people come in and like skip to those mini, like say those micro questions? What are kind of the common things that you get asked about?
I suppose it's it kind of like, as you say, I mean, I guess the first thing, people coming in, they want to find out about the whole package, and it's just like, but they go, like you say, it goes straight to that, like, oh, should I? It's more, I find it is more centered around the nutrition side of things, because there's a lot of things. I mean, people have an idea about their training and kind of where they want to head with that, I guess. But when it cocomes down to the nutrition, it's kind of, they're being fed all these kind of like different viewpoints, and like, it's buy this protein shake, this will help you do this will help you do that. So it's kind of like you say, it comes down to, well, what should I have? Should I have this? Is it this brand of protein, or this brand of protein is better? Or is it which piece of fruit should I have after training, and things like that? So yeah, it is, as you say.
Yeah, worrying about the micro rather than like focusing on the macro. And I guess, to begin with, like the bottom, if we're thinking about building a pyramid, the bottom of the pyramid really is working out, how much energy you expend in a day. So are you sat at your desk? Are you someone who's maybe on their feet? Are you someone who's maybe, like a manual labourer, who, very high energy expenditure, versus, how many times you train in the week, and then obviously how much energy and food you consume. And, people have become a little bit more aware about, the term like calorie deficit, and energy in, energy out. But, and that can take a little bit of fine tuning for people as well, because obviously, functional fitness and the type of training that we do is, can be quite intense. Can be heavy, can be stressful, and obviously, it's very common that I see when people they join the gym, they sign up for a gym, they go, right, I'm gonna find a number of calories to follow and start tracking my food, and they often maybe either they overestimate the amount they train, so they give themselves too many calories, or they're too restrictive and don't give themselves enough, and then struggle to perform in the gym. Like, from your experience, like as someone who trains or someone as a coach, like what do you see or come across when people start, let's say those first couple of months in the gym and start tracking, or even your own personal experience?
Yeah, I mean, I find, especially coming from like the perspective of a girl and who has been sort of training for a long time now, and it has been a lot of trial and error for me over the years. But I find that in my own personal experience, directly, that I found that it's that restriction, and that if I wanted to lose weight or to lose body fat, I need to restrict and drastically cut down the amount of calories I've had. And I've been there, I've done that. Obviously, it hasn't worked in the past. And just in like general conversation with, you know, various people like members and friends and training partners, and that's kind of like the general thing. And I think girls especially kind of shy away from carbs. I know for me, carbs was a big thing. It was always, you know, at growing up, it was more this restriction on the carb side of things, like, you know, carbs are bad, they're going to make you fat, all that sort of stuff, and just growing up around that. And for most of my time, except for the last sort of 2 years or so, I've always had that at the back of my mind, and it's impacted my performance and impacted my body, my body composition and things like that. And I'm not the only one.
Yeah. You know, we need to remember that, you know, in a typical class or a typical workout, you know, the sweaty bit, the metabolic conditioning, the workout is probably going to be between like 8 minutes to like 20 minutes most of the time, isn't it? So we're primarily using glycogen, you know, primarily using carbohydrates as an energy source. You know, we're not endurance athletes. We're not necessarily, you know, doing explosive work where we're doing one lift every 4 or 5 minutes. You know, we're using a lot of muscle groups, our heart rate's high, we're doing a lot of varied different exercises, and it's having the right, you know, the right fuel, but also then the right kind of type of fuel as well. So, you know, making sure we're eating enough. And then, like I say, yeah, not being afraid of carbohydrates, because not only are they going to help you perform, but they're going to help you recover from exercise as well. Yes, they're an area that people can overeat, but yeah, I think, you know, with it potentially, like I say, yeah, a little bit of stereotyping. I find that guys will often maybe overestimate the act they do and give themselves more calories and then just call it they're bulking. And then maybe girls, you know, right, I'm going to the gym, I'm going to diet, and then struggle to get through a session, which is something we're always, you know, if you've got a little bit more fuel in the tank, if you're going into that session well fueled, you're actually going to do more.
Yeah. You know, and coming from both sides of the argument, like I've been in both places. I've had a goal that was more aesthetic than performance based, and so I did reduce the amount of carbs, and at the time that was what I was heading for, but my performance suffered and it dropped. Whereas now I'm more performance based and increasing only by 20 or 30 grams a day. It's massively impacted the amount that I can actually do in a session. Yeah. And I know I've got another few other people who sort of, you know, echo the same sort of thing. They've upped their carbs slightly and their output has just gone through the roof.
Exactly. Yeah. Suddenly, you know, you're not spending half of that workout staring at the bar, staring at the rig. You know, we've all been there where, you know, of course we get the odd day like that, but if we're constantly just getting by in training, we're never really progressing. You know, often people get like newbie gains, don't they, when they join the gym and they do really well, and then things kind of plateau. And, you know, it's often then kind of looking at what their blocking factor is. Like, right, you know, is it your power to weight ratio? Is it, right, I need to get a bit stronger? Well, then you need to maybe eat a little bit more so you can do a little bit more in the sessions. How do you find like balancing, you know, making sure you're eating enough, but then getting enough like quality in as well? So obviously we're big fans of ensuring the quality of your food is as good as you can afford to be. You know, it's great for nutrient density. We've got micronutrients. We've got, you know, potentially reducing inflammation by eating, you know, a higher quality diet. So how do you find, you know, making sure you're eating enough, but then getting enough kind of quality food in as well?
I mean, I know you guys, and I've always been like a massive, you know, being as busy as what we generally are and what I am. Meal prepping has a massive factor in ensuring that I get the right nutrition. I'm not making poor impulse choices. I've got all my food there ready to go. So it's just making sure I buy as fresh as I can, or fresh or frozen, either way, but just making sure I have the bulk of veggies or bulk of rice or whatever it might be at home, so that I can just grab. And whenever I'm choosing a recipe to cook, I just make sure that it has, you know, a balance of veggies, it has a balance of carbs or whatever it might be. And I'm a big fan of component cooking. I do that so that, you know, Brian and I he can have what he needs and I can have what I need without having to cook two separate, completely separate meals. I just generally just adjust the quantities. But, you know, just when I'm choosing recipes or when I'm choosing what to cook, just making sure that the bulk of the ingredients are, you know, fresh or, you know, are frozen or whatever it might be, but not processed is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, brilliant. You alluded to a good point there. Again, sometimes a simple question we get asked is the difference between like fresh and frozen. and generally, like, there's not too much different. I think, like, from what I'm aware of, like, on farms now, when food is harvested, it's frozen pretty quickly. So, a lot of kind of vitamins, nutrients that are locked in, they're sealed. I think with certain fruit in particular, like, fruit can be quite expensive, fresh fruit. So I'd always say to people, like, bags of frozen fruit is good. It's not going to go off. There's nothing worse than opening the fridge and some of the fruit's gone off, and the same with vegetables and things like that. And I think sometimes, cooking from frozen maybe takes a little bit longer, but I think it's a personal preference, and it's what works best for you. So just because you said, Loz, that meal prep works for you, it doesn't have to be that people have got to go out and meal prep. Obviously, right now people might be at home a little bit more, so they can spend more time in the kitchen and cooking, and that's great. It could even be simple as the dinner is lunch method, which works really well for people. Or we've spoken before about component cooking. So whether you have a protein, a carb, and some vegetables, kind of component off, or even just doing one thing. Like recently, I found with other clients is saying, right, if you roast off a tray of mixed vegetables, that will last you, 3 or 4 days, and you can just add that to meals throughout the week, particularly maybe meals at lunch where maybe we don't get as much vegetables in, and that kind of thing. That's pretty cool. So we've spoken about, touched on a little bit about calories, a little bit about quality. The next step up might be then looking at, like, macronutrients. Again, that's often a question we get asked, is like, oh, what should my macro split be? How do I need to split my protein, carbs, and fats? And generally, I would say it's actually trial and error, and it's not necessarily essential. I've worked with clients, particularly with fat loss, that have lost a lot of weight, and we've not had really specific macros to follow. All that we've done is we've had maybe a calorie target and a protein target, and then the rest is sometimes a little bit of personal preference, because if that overall number is coming in line, it doesn't really matter where you eat your carbs and where you get the rest of the calories from, if it's higher carb, lower fat, or a high fat, low carb. All it may affect is potentially, like, someone's performance, depending on how regularly they're training, the type of exercising you're doing. Like, do you track all your macros? Do you track some? How do you feel on certain macros, etc.? Is there anything you've
I mean, I'm a pretty, like, I like to have my day planned out, which I know doesn't work for everybody. So I track everything. And it's something that I had to ease my way into. Like, I've been doing it now for 2 years, so it's almost like second nature. But when I first started, like you say, as long as I kind of hit my protein, I was kind of happy. And then I just sort of worked in from there over the months. And now to the point where I can easily pretty much track whatever I do. But I did muck around with my ratios, and I found that I personally do better, even though we're saying, I mean, my carbs are a lot more now than what they were, years ago. But I still find that having being slightly lower in carbs works better for me. I did a sort of a bit of an experiment over a couple of months where I had the same overall calories per day, but my carbs were about 20 grams per day higher, and my fat and my protein was slightly lower to counter it out. And I found I just didn't feel great on it. I felt a little bit bloated. I felt a bit gross. And then as soon as I brought my carbs back down again and upped my fat and my protein slightly, that worked for me, and my performance sort of increased again. So like you say, it does come down to personal preference. And I think, chatting to a few people, that's kind of, what I found.
Yeah. And I would always encourage that, life can be stressful enough. If you're worrying about work, kids, whatever's going on, and having to add more stress by worrying about, your percentages and things like this, like, say, having a calorie target and then a protein target, for most people is often enough. Sometimes, percentage targets can just help people control their overall calorie intake, particularly something with fat that has a higher calorie gram for gram than, say, carbs do. Or you may have someone that is a bit of a carbaholic, and they just eat too many carbs and therefore too many calories. So it's just kind of reining it in as well. But yeah, that's some cool points. So we're going to touch a little bit on being a female athlete for functional fitness. Now, I don't want people to be put off by me using the term athlete, because to me, everyone's an athlete. So this is not just like yourself that competes. This is anyone who comes in the gym and exercises. You're an athlete. So as a female athlete and functional fitness, like, what are, you know, some of your challenges, or things that are, you know, kind of hurdles to get around when you're in training? Obviously right now training might be a little bit different. You know, think back to when we were back in the gym, you know, whether it's, you know, strength training, whether it's more like, you know, aerobic work, you know, monthly cycles, anything like that. Like, what are the challenges that you have to navigate around being a female athlete?
I think it mostly comes down to me and my hormones and how I feel like throughout the month. And I know that sort of like it gets to the point where sort of like, you know, at a certain point in my cycle, like I know now that generally the week before I get my period, I find that I'm not, I feel sluggish. I don't feel like I definitely don't feel as strong. Strength is a massive thing in that week before, and I just feel generally a bit heavier and a bit gross. So I know that I can't be too hard on myself in that time. It's taken me a long time to sort of get to that point where I'm just like, I've just got to go with it rather than try and fight against it. And then one of my friends said to me a little while ago, he's like, why are you fighting it? Just, you know, sometimes you might need to go with it and just, you know, ease up on training for that particular week before. And just, you know, when you're feeling good, push it then.
Turn the dial up. Yeah. And that's such a simple kind of way to think about it, because, you know, often, and this is probably the same across for guys and girls, is that we often think about just hammering training all the time. And maybe, you know, we don't deload, we don't take a week off, we definitely don't take 2 rest days in a row. Like, sometimes when I recommend that to clients, they give me, you know, they either, you know, type back pretty angrily, or they give me a really crazy look when I say, look, take 2 days rest in a row, because it's just like low energy availability, isn't it?
100%.
And the same, you know, a simple recommendation, like, say, right, we're getting to that period where we know, right, I'm going to struggle, I'm going to find training difficult. Well, okay, well, let's, you know, I'm going to dial back the intensity. I might not RX, would be a simple thing. I'm just going to, you know, take a lighter weight and move it well. I may do one less session, or I may do something a little bit, you know, like what we call monostructural. So I might just do some running or some cycling or some bodyweight cardio. And I'd even encourage females as well, is to slightly up their calories potentially, just to support yourself with, like, say, energy availability. Like, you know, a week at kind of maintenance isn't gonna you know, cause you to put loads of weight back on. You know, it could just be adding a couple of 100 calories per day. You know, that's easily diluted across 3 or 4 meals. Again, just to support yourself. Do you find in the gym that being a female athlete, you kind of naturally, you know, excelled in some areas of functional fitness versus other areas?
I find that, I think in comparison to like our male counterparts, I guess, that I find it harder to build strength. I find it's a bit more of a drawn out process for me. That, you know, it's been a lot more of a slower progression to get strong than I've seen, you know, other people who've made like kind of big jumps and kind of able to maintain sort of big jumps and then maintain that higher weight. I think I found learning a skill, so like, you know, kipping pull-ups and things like that, muscle ups, different story, but, you know, handstand push-ups and the high skill level things, I think if anything I found a little bit easier to learn. That's just personal experience. As far as coming from a coaching perspective, skill development hasn't really been differentiated, I guess, between male and female. But the strength thing, I think, is just a bit of a slow burn as opposed to a massive increase.
Yeah, I think I tend to agree with you. I would say generally, for a female athlete, their power to weight ratio is pretty good. So with gymnastics, they're going to probably get on pretty well. Whereas often, with a male athlete, their kind of blocking factor with gymnastics sometimes might be that, do you know what, that they can strict press, but they can't do a handstand push-up. They can't actually move their own body weight. So actually, if they drop a little bit of weight, suddenly like the burpee box jumps and the handstand push-ups and the, all that kind of stuff like becomes a lot easier for them. Whereas, like I say, I think a female athlete will naturally be often aerobically quite fit. Maybe their background prior to functional fitness is, I've done a bit of running, I've done a bit of, group fitness, bit of spin class. So that they've got normally a decent aerobic fitness, but they've not really done much strength training. Well, I think with guys, it's probably the opposite. Like, they often come in quite strong. They can back squat pretty well, but then you put them in a Metcon and they're on the floor in 3 minutes.
Yes. Hit a nail on the head there. Definitely. Yeah.
Do you find that, as a coach and as a female, that you find that females leer towards certain classes or certain training versus, other members of the gym? Or?
Yeah, I guess it comes back to that same age-old thing that Metcon is generally the safe option, especially for newer girls coming into the gym. Like, it is always that, I don't want to get too bulky, I don't want to get too this or that when it comes to doing functional fitness or CrossFit in a sense. And then the boys, it tends to be, I'm going to go and do strength class, I want to learn how to be squat heavy, deadlift heavy, all that sort of stuff. And then and
it's interesting because I think first and foremost, like, I've never heard anyone say, I don't want to be too strong.
No.
I don't, do you know what? I don't fancy deadlifting 150 kilos. I don't want to deadlift 120. Like, we can never be too strong. So, and I think it's empowering. I think it's empowering to lift weight and move weight. And I think I agree with you. I would always encourage male and female to do more strength classes.
Oh, 100%. It's the best feeling in the world.
Yeah, definitely. And I think because, not only is it going to help you feel strong in the gym, but it might help you be strong outside the gym. If you're a mum, you've got to, pick up kids and carry shopping, or, if you're a dad who's, or you're a manual labourer or whatever you're doing. I mean, I don't want to stereotype what people do in a day, but it can help you be fitter and stronger outside the gym as well. And I think, females always worry a little bit about, getting bulky, etc. Well, there's always a couple of things to think about. Is that, one, females have a lot less testosterone than a male, which is the main kind of hormone around building muscle. So, it is a lot harder for a female to put on muscle. And as long as you're not, if you were eating to a calorie maintenance, if you were, as long as you weren't over consuming, if you were in a massive calorie surplus, you're going to probably put on muscle and fat. But if you eat to a calorie maintenance, you're over time just going to change your body composition. And I think maybe, not worrying too much about the number on the scale, and just worrying more about, your shape and your performance, and those kind of things as well. And even, in a strength training class or a barbell class, there's different ways to get stronger. And this is something maybe we can talk about, perhaps as the gyms start to reopen, is that, you can get stronger and build muscle by doing muscular, like hypertrophy. So the old kind of 3-4 sets of 10 on a bench press or whatever, or squats. But actually, if you do like heavier, like 3 to 5 sets of 3 to 5, like you're going to get stronger, but you're not necessarily going to build as much, you're not going to experience as much muscular hypertrophy. So there's different ways to train as well. Getting stronger doesn't always necessarily mean putting on loads of muscle.
100%. That's exactly right.
Yeah, that's really cool. So a few, just to kind of summarize, just a few things that hopefully we've gone over for everyone. Like I say, if you're thinking about, I just want to, pull my diet back in and where do I start? Well, if you go to the pHNutrition website, there is a free macro calculator that you can use. You can put in information, you can put in your goals, and it'll give you a calorie target. It'll give you a macro breakdown if you want to follow it. If you're thinking about, dieting right now, or if you're even just thinking about just finding a bit of a baseline, and particularly, let's say we touched on there with female athletes, don't be afraid of eating to help yourself perform, eating to help yourself recover. And as Loz says, in those weeks where I'm feeling a little bit depleted, or I know I'm going to struggle, just eat a little bit more, maybe take an extra rest day, so that you can come out of it going stronger as well.
Perfect.
Cool. Anything
Amazing.
else, Loz? Are you good?
I think we've covered a bit of a lot today.
That's cool. So, like I said, if you've got a question that you want answered, you can drop me an email. It's tom@pHNutrition.co.uk. You can come find me on Instagram at tmc.nutrition, or there'll be a link in the email as well. So, like I say, I'm going to do a shortish video each week, either with a coach, a member, whatever, just to chat about what's going on. So if you've got any questions, any topics you want us to cover, then yeah, please drop us a line. All right.
Cool. Thanks, Tom.
Super. Thanks, Loz.